Okay, business owners, are you ready for this big question? What is your exit strategy? Now, getting into business, it's not something that you generally would think about. What's the exit plan? Today, I get to speak with Gary Keating, business coach. He has built and sold successful businesses all of his career, and now he teaches others how to do the same. Have a listen. Gary's going to share with you why this is important. Business coaching. Tell me, why did you get into business coaching?
That's a great question, Michelle. I got into business when I was very, very young. My mum would say I was about 10 or 11 when I was getting the bus down into the city centre and selling records or LPs at that time to the shop to buy music, because I was actually a musician playing pianos in the pubs in Bristol, then built up a music business, music shops. And various businesses throughout that whole sort of, 40 year period. And then I retired 9 years ago. I was in Hong Kong for 17 years, built up businesses there, came back to the UK. And obviously having, built businesses and never had a job, you just don't, you work at a certain pace, I think, when you own a business. And coming back in, retiring with all the gear, no idea, the golf clubs, the Labrador, the Defender, the sheep, sounded great on paper, but within 6 months, my wife was like, "You've got to do something." And I really still had, some business interests, but I really didn't honestly know what to do. And I often share this because I looked at, everything. I looked at even cutting grass franchises, and then I seen one day in the newspaper, it talked about ActionCOACH and business coaching, and I genuinely had never heard of business coaching before. And so I spoke to a very good friend of mine in Hong Kong, and I said, "I've seen this thing about business coaching." He said, "Well, why don't you become a consultant? You've been in business all those years. People like to get advice from you." And I said, "I can't become a business consultant because over the years in business, I paid, I don't know, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to business consultants, and they've written me fantastic reports. But the problem is, as an entrepreneur, I put them in my second drawer and carry on regardless. I never read the reports." So I thought, no, I'm gonna have a look at it. And so Action Coach was my first introduction into what business coaching was. And the other thing he said is, "Why do you need to, go with Action Coach or somebody like Action Coach? Why don't you just start the Gary Keating School of Business?" And I didn't have an answer for that at that point. So I went and I looked at a lot of Brad's videos online, went to see Ian and Julie in the UK, and it just blew me away. When what I could see was kind of 35 years of blood, sweat, and ignorance and tears of trying to build businesses right there. And when I seen that, I knew that I could make a difference. I thought I know that I'd gone back to my hometown where I was born, Bristol in the UK, and I thought, I know that with that framework, which I was looking at things, having been in business those years, and I'm like, oh, that is so obvious. Why did I take years to do that?
How do you get business owners in that mindset of building their business so it is become a sellable asset? And quite often I hear too from coaches where business owners come to them for support and assistance in, fixing elements of their business and creating a better cash flow and profit because they want to sell, but they fall back in love with their business and then don't end up selling. I hear that a lot too.
So for me, that's well, congratulations, by the way, and it's great that you did that. I think there's a lot in there. The most, one of the things that hit me that you said there was about the 5 years. Very often people say to me, "Gary, you've been an entrepreneur or in business all of your life, and what would you say the typical lifetime of an entrepreneur is?" And I normally say 5 years. And so, what do you mean 5 years? And my view is, and this I think is really important, if somebody has been in business for 22 years, running that same business, running it day in, day out, and something happens to that person in the 23rd year, COVID, recession, product recall, what health, whatever, they don't get another 21, 22 years to build up another business. And so an entrepreneur should be able to start from tomorrow with zero and know how to build something within 5 years that they can sell. Because you know, if you're going to say, I'm going to take 20 years to build this, of course you don't have to leave in 5 years' time. But I think most entrepreneurs should be in the basis of learning how do you build something from scratch and be able to sell it within a 5-year period. So that for me is very important. That's point one. Point two is when I meet people, I say, what does the end look like? I say, well, that's a bit serious, isn't it? I say, well, there's always an end. I mean, and I say sometimes regret is at the end, right? Or regret is always at the end. So we then talk about why are you in business? Well, you're in business, Brad says, and it's so true. You're in business to give you the life you deserve. And if you love being in business, that's great. I love being in business. You know, I retired and I was terrible at it. So I'm back and I don't, I just love it. But the point is, do you have the choice whether to go to work or not? If you fell out of love with that restaurant in year 7 and you couldn't sell it because you were doing, at some point, what happens if you fall out of love of being a dentist, of being a recruitment agent, but you can't leave the business? So when I'm talking to people about and say, what does the end look like? I ask them, I go back to the property thing always. I say, look, you can live in your property, but if you've built that property, or even if you bought that property, you would want to know that you could rent it out, i.e. put a manager in, and you'd want to know you could sell it. You've got to have those 3 things. I can live in it, so I can do the dentistry, or I can run the restaurant as long as I want. But if I want to, I can rent it. So somebody else will, manage that house, pay the rent and manage the business for me. But ultimately, can I sell it? And when I talk to people about that, they're like, okay, so I know how to be a dentist, but how do I get the other 2? And that's why I think that's one of the gifts of coaching. To say, well, let's do that, but let's get fast. Because you shouldn't. You can take, some people take 20, 25 years, Michelle, and still not get to where they can get in 5 years. Because they're so doing the working in the business. So congratulations on the restaurant.
So for business owners out there who are thinking about getting a coach, the coach they talk to, the first question they should ask is, do you have a coach? I
always say to people, I've got young kids, got older kids, and grandkids, but when those young kids go off to play football, when they're 6 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, they have a coach. Bill Gates has a coach. So why does this sway in the middle, whether they're coaches or whatever they are? I think everybody needs somebody that's going to give them perspective on where they are at the moment, and making sure that they keep them acting, and what I mean by that, into action towards where they want to be, rather than reacting to everything that's happening every day. Because reactions are important, but they can do a lot of business. They can do us all in. Because you need a coach to go, you know what? You're focusing on that right now, yeah? Well, what's the opportunity cost because you're not focusing on that? If you're saying yes to that, what are you saying no to?
Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.